Hey guys, it's been a while since I did a YouTube video, so I thought today would be a good day to do one. So we spent all that time last week, or last couple of weeks, talking about the Civil War and all the events that led up to the Civil War. And I thought we should take some time really quick to think about why does it really matter? You know, why do we sit here in class and actually learn about it? I mean, it seems like it happened such a long time ago. And so, I've really been thinking about that a lot last night and, well, recently about why should in the year 2018, really care about what happened in 1860. And, I got a couple of thoughts, and I'm hoping it makes sense, and I hope that you agree with me that you feel like it's kind of important too. I mean, one big thing, I feel like, is look what happened during the election of 1860, right? You had if I can get it on the camera, two people running from the Democratic Party, and look at the result. Okay, um, you know, I was able to vote last election. You guys weren't able to vote yet, right? But you'll be able to vote really, really, really soon. Okay, and let's pretend that maybe I wasn't a huge Donald Trump fan. Maybe I loved Ted Cruz, right? But I also was really scared of Hillary Clinton, or I really didn't want Hillary Clinton to win the presidency. Okay, well, when Ted Cruz dropped out, why should I have voted for Donald Trump? If I didn't really like Donald Trump, why should I have voted for him? Okay? Or let's flip it around the other way. Let's say I was scared of Donald Trump. Okay? But I loved Bernie Sanders. Okay? And Hillary Clinton, I was kind of like, not really. Not really going for her. Okay? Well, when Bernie Sanders dropped out, why should then I give my vote to Hillary? Okay? Well, the answer is because you want your party not to be split, or you don't want the votes to only go to one person, or you want the votes to only go to one person, right? So, when we can look at the election of 1816 history and look at what happened and how it affected the result to figure out, let's try not to make that happen again. So people will make sure that we have one Democrat, we have one Republican, and all that great stuff. Okay. Um, Okay, how about the other idea of the Supreme Court? Okay, we don't really hear a lot about the Supreme Court. I mean, they work over there in Washington. They do stuff that doesn't really affect us day to day, so we don't really care about them. But we really should. I mean, look at Dred Scott and how at the time it was a horrible court case ruling that slaves are a property and slaves aren't even citizens and they can't sue and they have no rights that the white man should respect. I mean, that's awful. Okay, well, sure, that happened in 1860, a long time ago. Maybe that's not super relevant today, you could argue. But how about all the things the Supreme Court are doing right now that is relevant? Okay, so the ideas of gay marriage, the ideas of abortion, the ideas of discrimination, the ideas of gun control, like all these court cases, the Supreme Court still decides today, hears about today, and how often do we really sit back and do we really think? Um, about what's happening there and like how are they impacting us, because as we've seen in the past through history by studying things like Dred Scott, they have a big impact on the country. Okay, and I know day to day we don't really have to sit back and like think, because it doesn't seem like it affects me every day, but it really does. Okay, how about the idea of John Brown himself? Okay, now John Brown, yeah, he's dead. He got hung, right, or hanged at Harper's Ferry. Maybe he's a little bit of a crazy guy. I don't know. Okay, but the idea of that he represented, that is violence in the name of something you are passionate about, should he be celebrated, right, or not? Okay, was John Brown a hero? Was John Brown a spark that lit the Civil War that ended up, okay, making, hopefully you'd argue, our country better? Okay, and should we honor him for that? Or should we look at John Brown and think like, no, the guy was a crazy nut who murdered people, and um, I don't know. There's peaceful ways he could have protested, and there's books like he could have been like Harriet Beecher Stowe and wrote a book, or Frederick Douglass. I mean, no, the guy's not someone we should celebrate. Um, and we can look at that through history and see the change that he made, and look at things like the civil rights movement of the 18 or 19 60s, and you could also look like at the Black Lives Matter movement and all this stuff today. And when violence happens, if violence happens in those movements, something that you might feel passionate about, is that justified today? Okay, Maybe you think it is, maybe you think it isn't. Okay, how about the idea of just social issues in general? Like, should the government, is it the government's job to solve social issues? And when I say social issues, I mean social issues that don't really involve running the country, but issues that impact people and maybe people argue about. So the idea of gay marriage, abortion, um, gun control was kind of a social issue, adoption issues, um, immigration issues. I don't know, but a lot of these issues that people are fighting about, I mean, is it the government's job? Because at the end of the day, the social issue is slavery, right? I mean, we're trying to figure out who had the power of slavery, or to control slavery, I should say, and that led to the Civil War. And is it the government's job to mandate a solution for that issue or not? Okay, so I'm like today, yeah, actually today we still have slavery, right? Probably in the U.S., sad to say, but we probably do. But there's other social issues. Like, for example, we watched a CNN episode not that long ago about a baker who refused to, bake a cake for a gay couple, and then they sued. And again, that actually relates back to the Supreme Court. But is it the government's job to tell people you have to do something for people of the same sex, even if you personally religiously are against it? Or is it the government's job to say to a hospital, you have to provide abortion, or you have to provide something to people if that hospital is against it? I mean, should the government be involved in those social issues like slavery back then, or gun control now somewhat, or drugs, or I mean whatever the issue is now? Or should we let people try to find that answer? Okay. And last but not least, I'd probably say just the idea of state rights. Okay, I was watching the news last night, and they were talking about this Oakland mayor of California, and she's trying to, protect all these illegal immigrants because she says you know, they're obviously people, and that's true. Okay, and they came here probably looking for a better life, probably true, and she wants to protect them, right? Well, but against the federal government, immigration's a federal government problem, right? I mean, they're sure California has a border, but there's no national border around California. Okay, and the national border is between Mexico and from Canada for the most part, right? And so that's a federal government issue, and it's something the federal government needs to do. Well, so can California go to the federal government and say, no, we're going to keep these illegal immigrants, and we're going to help them um, and protect them? Or do they have to listen to the government, federal government, say, you know what, I know these people really haven't done any major crime, in your opinion, but they're here illegally. And by definition, here illegally means you broke the law. Okay, so, who wins out in that situation? Or, we talked about the legalization of marijuana one, or we talked about, I don't know, gun control. We talked about drugs, whatever. But, this idea of states' rights, okay? Now, our first government, the Articles of Confederation, the states were more powerful than the federal government, okay? So it's like states, federal government. Now, because of the Civil War, we finally find, like, no, actually the federal government's more powerful than the states. And that's still a battle today. And if you follow the news, and hopefully you do, as you get older, you're going to see that argument still happening day after day after day after day today of who's more powerful. And hopefully it's somewhat of a good argument to have, okay? But it's an argument nonetheless. And so all these things wrapped up together still relate today, and hopefully make you understand why the Civil War, due to the social issues that tore the country apart, the Supreme Court and the impact it can have on the country, the electoral results with the election, and why it's so important that we only have one Republican or one Democrat running from each party. Okay, and why when Donald Trump's running again for election, he needs more than just 60% of the Republicans, because Douglas probably had 60% of the Democrat votes in the election of 1860, and he lost. So for those political parties, they really need the support of everybody from the country when, from that party that they're from. Okay, maybe it's the idea of John Brown and violence. Maybe it's the idea of just states' rights, and do states have the right to overpower the federal government, or how is that power actually shared? Because of course both parts want power, right? All these issues led to the Civil War. All of these issues in some way are still relevant today, and I hope that as you guys grow older and you stay engaged and stay informed, you'll always think of these connections. All right, see you today. Bye.